Secretary of State John Kerry begins the new year with a fresh new push for peace talks between Israel and the Palestinian territories. Kerry leaves for Jerusalem and Ramallah today to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Iran's nuclear program took center stage on Kerry's last visit to the Middle East in December. Republican Congressman Robert Pittenger just returned from the region after examining what he calls the unintended consequences of President Obama's newly signed nuclear deal with Iran. The congressman joins me now to discuss his findings. And Congressman, I just want to point out that you are officially the first member of Congress to join MSNBC in 2014. So welcome and Happy New Year. You have this dubious distinction.
Thank you, Thomas. It's a pleasure to be with you. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, sir. So let's talk about this deal specifically and where we stand, the U.S., in line with Britain, France, Russia, China, and Germany in striking what it is halting in Iran, that country's nuclear program, and in exchange for that, this temporary sanction relief from the West. And you just visited the Middle East and Europe, where you met with world leaders, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So tell us about your findings there and what you call these unintended consequences.
Well, what has happened is an agreement that was negotiated by the Iranians that frankly puts them in a very positive situation. We are not allowed to go but to only the 17 approved sites. And when I say we, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency. And they can only go to those 17 sites. The rest of the country is wide open. It really begs the question of how much accountability that we really have in terms of their compliance. I met as well with the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna, and they confirmed this. I said, is this a concern to you? And they said, absolutely, of course it is. So I think I wish for the best, but frankly, you know, you asked the question about Iran and their intentions. They have some of the greatest oil reserves in the world. They have one nuclear power plant now. They say they need 9 more. I would ask the first question, why do they need it? What's the civil use for these additional needs of expanding their nuclear capacities?
As we evaluate,
right now, they have not.
One thing, though,
well, they haven't.
I wanted to say, though, because the criticism that you don't hold back on your website, I just want to make sure that people see what is on your website. And if I can just pull a quote from it. You say, sure, civilization may well hang in the balance by the well-intentioned, sure, but deathly miscalculated diplomatic efforts of President Obama and Secretary Kerry. Nuclear proliferation in the Middle East would be the ultimate unintended consequence. So as you talk about this, and this is obviously a baby step diplomatically in trying to take care of Iran's nuclear intentions, but what would your alternative be? What would your alternative strategy have been?
Well, number one, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt have all stated their intentions to commit themselves to nuclear armament. This is a very serious problem. All of them have expressed these real concerns. It's a concern to the Prime Minister Netanyahu. It's a concern to every leader that we met with. And I have met with the heads of state in Qatar, in UAE, in Egypt, in Jerusalem. Every one of them recognize we have a common foe, and that's Islamic terrorism. We have an Islamic terrorist state in Iran. They have absolutely no credibility in terms of the last 30 years in their funding for Islamic terrorists. They are the primary factor right now behind Hezbollah in Syria today. So I think you have to look at the real validity of what they say that they're intending to do. And if we're only allowed to go to those 17 places.
But as you bring up that, though, you're talking about international terrorism on a grander scale here, and saying that these ghost efforts that are on behind the scenes are somehow comparable to these front-end diplomatic efforts that we're watching now through the work of President Obama and Secretary Kerry. So is it possible to conflate those two in doing a deal like this in front of the world and having counterparts like Russia and China and Germany all signing on, but knowing those valid points that you bring up?
Russia does not want Iran to have nuclear capacities. No, there's no country in the Middle East that does. This is an issue that's being pressed by our administration. It's void of any accountability and real credibility in terms of are they in compliance. And what you have now are other countries who have publicly stated their intentions for nuclear armament, that is nuclear proliferation. And that will bring the whole world into a greater sense of urgency and a crisis as we look at the greatest problems that we have in the world are in the Middle East. And you've taken that entire situation and expanded that concern with nuclear proliferation. So I think this is wishful. It's hopeful. I think it's a rush to try to do an agreement. But as I met with the International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna and their leadership, they confirmed with me that, yes, we do have a problem in Iran, that we cannot go to the rest of the country to investigate what they're doing. There was no accountability for them to reduce their centrifuges, 16,000. Why do they need that many? Their uranium, their plutonium, they have economic benefits, $7 billion of economic capacity that we've given them. So where is it that we're going to find a real solution? I think had we kept the pressure on Iran as we had before, that's where we had found success. And that pressure has been removed. Every one of our allies, our partners in the Middle East said, keep the pressure on Iran. And I agree with them.
Well, we'll have to wait and see exactly the details that come out of Secretary Kerry's trip. Congressman Robert Pittenger, again, sir, thanks for coming on. And again, you get the dubious distinction of being our first member of Congress on MSNBC this year.
It's my privilege. Happy New Year to you, Tom.
Thank you, sir. Coming up, high